Hey, hi, hello, welcome back to Trail Society, produced by our friends over at Feisty Media. I'm your host, Corrine Malcolm, and today's episode is brought to you by our incredible apparel partner, Rabbit. And I can't wait to sit down and chat with one of my favorite co-hosts, Keely Henninger. Keely, you are back from the desert, but you weren't there for a running race.
I know, it was pretty sad, actually. I feel like every February I make my way down to the Arizona desert. But yeah, this year I was in Palm Springs, so California desert, for my sister's bachelorette party. So it was not really running related at all. Yeah, it was very much actually probably anti-running related. So yeah, it was a really nice break. I feel like I've been just on the move since taking Step, because we went taking Step, going to Costa Rica, coming back, having class for a week, going to Palm Springs, coming back, having class for a week. Now I'm on rotation. So if anybody else's life sounds like that, I feel you. It's not that fun, but it's also fun at the same time.
We texted about this trip because you were like, I am the DD and I am tired and I am trying to stay awake and be a good, supportive sister and party girl, but also everyone is sleeping until 10 a.m. So I guess I can go for a morning run, but I also have been up super late. So it's a lot to juggle.
It's really hard. Yeah. And obviously, like, those are first world problems. I could probably also just try to sleep in until 10, but my body doesn't sleep in that late. So I'm always up by like 7 and I'm like, no.
Other than 7 sounds like a sleep in for you. So
Totally. Yeah. And I think if it wasn't for the late nights, it would felt very luxurious. But overall, it was still super fun. I recovered just fine. But yeah, definitely can't hang like I used to, which I'm sure we can all relate to.
You got some sun on your skin though?
Yeah. Have you gotten to get to some sun lately?
No, I've been on we'll call it fertility related medical leave. We did an IVF cycle, so I was very much a couch potato for the last couple weeks. We're like now in one of the long waiting phases of seeing kind of what our outcomes are. But effectively, you're not allowed to exercise because your ovaries are ginormous. And one, exercising doesn't feel good because your ovaries are ginormous. And two, you're at higher risk of torsion of an ovary. And so you kind of just like progressively feel more and more like a beached whale. And I walked the dogs and I sat on my couch and I watched Black Canyon and Tarawera from afar and had crazy FOMO the whole time, but it was 1,000% the right move. Turns out I don't like stabbing myself with needles. So it was like, there was no way I was taking that show on the road.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely not. And I think it's like a small sacrifice for potential like super great long-term gain, you know?
Yeah, 1,000%. So but because of that, the Olympics were my emotional support animal, creature, pet for the past 2 weeks. And while I'm sad they're over, the Paralympics are right around the corner. And one of our really good friends, Dani Arovich, will be competing in her 3rd Paralympic Games. So we'll be cheering her on. We'll have her on the podcast, which will drop during, I'm pretty sure, the Paralympic week, which will be very, very exciting. And I'm wondering if you were able to catch any of the Olympics amongst your travels and school schedule.
I think last we spoke, we talked about skiing, because skiing was like on the first day, the Elaine Goose show and all of those things. Some of the cross country skiing have been going on, but lately I rewatched like JT video recorded the men's hockey, women's hockey gold medal matches. So, you know, I maybe watched 5 minutes of them, but I could appreciate the athleticism of the skaters and everything, and also just like really cool to get gold in those sports, because I feel like traditionally we don't. So that was really cool to see.
Yeah, well, and we'll talk more about how amazing the entire U.S. women's teams were jointly across all of the disciplines. They truly carried Team USA. Yeah. Team USA, while Norway just blew everyone out of the water once again.
And I know that last time we talked, you were like stoked about Ben being the USA cross country medal winner.
Yeah, got a medal.
What was your, like second half of the Olympics favorite memory?
Well, cool that Ben actually doubled back with Gus Schumacher to get a silver in the team sprint. Jesse's amazing bronze in the 10K. I'm a biathlon fan, having done that sport for a number of years. And so getting to watch people that I actually still raced with, they did two of the women, one of the women in particular who I raced with way back in the day at like Junior Worlds and that kind of stuff. Dorothea Weir has had an amazing career. This was her 4th Olympics, I believe. Don't think it was like a perfect Olympics for her by any means, but Anholtz, where the biathlon venue was, is her legit home course. Like that is her home stadium. And so she was in the women's mass start, which is the very last biathlon event of the Olympics. It was on Saturday. before everything finished up on Sunday. And she got to, she finished fifth. She did an amazing race just outside the medals, but was finishing in front of her hometown crowd. And she's a huge celebrity there. And so that to me was just like very emotional. And same with like Jessie Diggins, actually. This is her final Olympics. And we grew up ski racing together. She's, I guess, technically like 18 months, close to 2 years younger than me, but we were in each other's age groups every other year. So on like the regional elite group team together and on the Midwest junior national team together. I found a photo on my computer the other day of us at junior nationals in 2008. I want to say like my senior year of high school, maybe her junior or sophomore year of high school. And we're total idiots. Like we look like just, we look like 17 and 16-year-olds having the best time in Alaska. But it feels like I've been cheering her on for 20 plus years now. And so I feel like am I retiring as a fan? No, but it is kind of weird to see that era come to a close.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah. So it's cool. It's really, really cool to see these people, in their first Olympic appearances or their fourth or fifth Olympic appearances. My other favorite one before we scooch ahead was women's monobob, which is a newer discipline. They only used to compete in two-woman bobsled, but now they also, to match the men's medal count, because they have 4-man and 2-man, there's 2-woman and monobob, so just a driver.
Whoa. And there's no monobob in men's?
No monobob for men's. The U23s, because there is like at like the Youth Olympic Games now, they have a monobob as the bobsled discipline there, which is super cool. But Alana Myers-Taylor, who I know from living in the Lake Placid Olympic Training Center when she was then just dating her now husband, Nick, before they had 2 babies who are, two incredible boys. She won her 5th medal and her first ever gold medal. And it was just like both of her sons are deaf. And so she's like signing, like she's like waiting to figure out if she's won, and she wins and she like falls to her knees and she signs to her 6-year-old mom won.
Oh,
and I was like, cool, crying. Now I'm just crying.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I saw some clickbaity pictures of this, but I didn't like research it at all. So I'm really glad to hear the story. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, moms did amazing at the Olympics as well. We'll talk about that more in a second. But yeah, it was a very cool Olympics. And again, March 6th, Paralympics start. So Team USA, be ready.
Yep, cue it up now.
Cue it up now. Take the week off. I guess before we dive into some of those results and newsy bits and our injury topic for today, kind of the hormonal side of injuries, coming back from injury, coaching through injury, our personal experiences, etc. It builds off our previous stress conversation, I think, very nicely. We do have to give a shout out to our apparel partner, Rabbit. We got photos of our complete line today. And my reaction is, holy cow, everything is super freaking cute. And I'm so excited for you to see it. And I think it's going to launch late April. So keep your eyes peeled, fam. It's going to be super cool.
Yeah, I'm really excited for y'all to see it. Similar vibes to last year, as in like we're trying to get people to look very pretty on the trails, but also like fierce and fast and matching and all sorts of fun.
Yeah, last year's flowers felt very, very pretty. This year's flowers feel like a celebration. Like they feel very joyous and fun. The pattern just like makes me smile. So I'm super excited for it to drop. But until then, you can hop on over to runinrabbit.com and use the code TSMarch. Again, TSMarch for 10% off.
Yeah. And pick up one of the new pocket bras. That was going to be my thing that I wanted to talk about.
That's your pitch? Your pocket bra?
Well, yeah, because I wore it all over in Palm Springs because I didn't want to leave without my phone. But how annoying is it to carry your phone? So the new pocket bra they have is like in a burgundy.
Yeah, the burgundy, like dark purpley mauve color is chef's kiss.
I recommend that.
I've got some easy joggers coming my way in that color.
Fun.
Yeah. Before we dive into news, we gotta give another shout out.
Yeah.
That is to
let's talk about
people
ProBio.
Keeping us sane. Yeah.
Let's talk about ProBio. We discovered this new all-in-one over the holidays, and we've been taking it for a couple of months now. It's comprehensive and foundational nutrition in one scoop that we've actually stuck with on a consistent basis, which we never do. That means it's amazing. And Trail Society listeners know that we're big on consistency. So, Corinne, are you team orange or original with your Pro Blend?
I am 1,000% team orange. And again, it's because it brings me back to my Tang days when I got the first single serving stuff from them because I got my big bag of the original Pro Blend that I put in my smoothies, but the tangy orange flavor has been my go-to, and I hide it from Steven because I am worried he will consume it all. But I feel like you're more of a smoothie person given your schedule.
Totally. And yeah, I definitely like the more neutral flavored smoothie booster. Has still a little bit of tang in it, so a nice a little pop to the smoothie. But I also need to hide it from JT. So clearly this thing is sought after. And normally I'll just throw one scoop in my smoothie like post run. And then I've covered like all my micronutrition needs for the day and without compromising flavor, because that is a great little boost to my chocolate smoothie. It's the best little orange tang combo.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing for us is that they've used research-backed, clinically dosed ingredients, things that are going to cover immunity and gut health. Also, really cool that they use this special form of magnesium called Magtin, best in class. Really helps me with my energy and my focus first thing in the morning. I am a coffee, run, probio, pro blend in that order. So when you are on a 10 a.m. call with me, I've probably had some orange pro blend or a smoothie in my system. But again, it keeps me focused. Also really important is that it has BCAAs, which is a huge deal if you're plant-based or if you find yourself coming up a little bit shy of hitting those daily protein targets.
Totally. Yeah. It's been a game changer for me too. So if you guys want to try it and have a product that also makes your significant others or friends really jealous and you have to hide it from them, you can now get 20% off or 30% off plus free shipping with a subscription by using the code TRAIL20. That's TRAIL20 at probionutrition.com. And for a greater impact, you can switch to a supplement regimen that you'll stick with today. And we'll link this in the show notes. So if you can't find that on your own, just go there and click on it there.
Yeah. We're excited for you to give it a try. Let us know what you think, how you feel after taking it. You can slide into our DMs with that, or critical questions like, why do we like it? Come slide into our DMs on Instagram. We've got some news to dive into. We kind of teased this the last time we chatted, and it was that we were going to talk post Black Canyon and Tarawera, which were the next two golden ticket races. And while we said we weren't doing a news show this year, we've got 5 more incredible women coming to Western states, and so I think it's impossible not to talk about it. Tarawera, super wet, 1.5 inches of rain. Ruth Croft does her thing, turns down the ticket, does her thing. Caitlin Fielder already in Western states. They basically run back the 2025 race, except in a ton of rain instead of perfect conditions. But that meant the tickets went to 3rd and 4th place. So and it's really cool because Tarawera hits that international audience, and so we are getting international women over to Western states in June. And so we've got 3rd place finisher Hanaka Akiyama of Japan. She's a Hoka athlete. Finished 3rd, ran a super strong race. Really excited to see her make her Western States debut. And then Holly Ranson, an Australian athlete who I think was actually on the Australia 24-hour team. She'd be really interesting to talk to actually at some point in time, but she didn't know that she was getting a ticket until she crossed the finish line, and then they presented it to her and she was completely floored. She thought she was outside the tickets. So the video of it is incredibly cute. So really excited to have Hanukkah and Holly join us at Western States.
Oh, me too. I love that race. It kind of bridges the international gap because it's like a fast race similar to Black Canyons, but it's in New Zealand. So it's going to draw a totally different crowd.
Yeah, and I think it's easier too for like the athletes from Asia to get to as opposed to come into the US to race. And so I wouldn't be surprised if that's an entry point for Japanese athletes and Chinese athletes in the future as well, just because I think getting there and spending time there and from a climate standpoint is also just probably much more similar to racing in Japan, Hong Kong, China, South Korea, etc. So we'll keep our eyes peeled on Tarawera. I hope they continue to be a golden ticket race for the next couple of years. Black Canyon, super crazy fast. Like Keely has run this, she's won this race, she's run this race, she's run really freaking fast on this race course. And this year, the women do the impossible.
Breaking hours.
And they break 8 hours. The men aren't even close to breaking 7 hours. The women break 8 hours. Jen Lichter nails her 100K debut. Ann Flower, who is a gem of a human, newly signed by Hoka. They go 1-2. They run the whole back half of the race like 75 seconds apart.
And then finish like 40 seconds apart?
Something like that, like a
Like,
minute
oh,
maybe. Like they were
crazy. Yeah.
sprinting.
I'm just like, that is
Absolutely sprinting.
crazy. Also, like, before we get to third and fourth and fifth and sixth, I know it's also very important, but I will say I was so impressed with Jen Lichter because I was watching the early videos where people were running through mile 9, mile 15, mile 20. She was stopping like she's been in this 100K, 100-mile race before, like cooling off, taking her time, not just like sprinting
Pro.
through. And like it pays off, which is what I always tell people to do because like even though it was a cool year, it's still the desert. Like it's
Yeah.
still hot for most people who are not living in the desert, you know? But it was so
Yeah.
cool to see. I was just like, girl, you respect the distance so much and you're so like such a good athlete. It was so fun to watch her execute that race.
Yeah. Like she nailed it. And then you have Ann Flower, who's just a freak
She's on
because
fire this year.
I think she had two handhelds basically that she was shoving into a belt. I don't know that she took on any cooling throughout the day. I think she might have also been pacerless. Like she just like did Ann Flower things where she made it look effortless. And I know it's not effortless, but it's a tiny bit frustrating, Anne, that you're so darn good.
Really cool to see. I'm excited for both of them in States.
Yeah.
Well,
Great additions. Well, yeah, we're waiting to have confirmation from Jen because according to the Western States website, it's not yet confirmed.
okay.
So, Jen, you have 2 weeks. That 2 weeks is probably up. When this comes out, actually, we'll probably know for sure if she's in or out. Behind her, Tara Dower finishes in third. I think also under the course record from last year. She PRs by like 13 minutes. She makes it look hard. She's covered in blood. Her finish line interview with Brett Hornig is the funniest thing I've ever seen. She's out of her mind. I think she vomited promptly thereafter. Like this girl makes everything look hard, and that's just how Tara rolls.
It's so
But she's already
impressive.
in Western States.
Like, I don't think I have the mental fortitude to push as hard as she does.
Yeah, she's kind of the Jessie Diggins of trail running. Like it's like she is fit and she is fast, obviously, but I feel like she outruns probably what her level is in comparison to someone who's like equally matched just because her mental fortitude is unreal. So she finishes covered in blood per usual. And then behind her in her 100K debut, effectively her like, she's done as many trail races as I have fingers, maybe. Molly Seidel, who led early, made some mistakes, but didn't get overwhelmed and seemingly just like held it together. Quote unquote, a ways back in fourth. But she was being chased by Abby and Shay. They weren't slowing down, and she held them off by a little. I think Abby was like 2 minutes back maybe. But I mean, Molly Seidel taking that ticket, I think, into Western States.
Yeah, pretty cool. I think that is exactly what I was going to highlight, that it was really cool to see her come into the sport and not demand anything and not be disgruntled if it didn't go the way she wanted to. And yeah, like leading early, that makes sense. Her fitness level is really high, but then not being deflated when she maybe ultimately made some mistakes or got passed or whatever it was, and still pushing and finishing fourth. Like that was really, really cool. And so I'm very excited for her. But yeah, I do think that like it's crazy that the first place and the fourth place was in their 100K debut. And like basically first. Yeah, it's really cool to see.
Yeah, incredibly cool to see. And then behind them, and why it's important is because we don't know if Jen's taken the ticket. And technically, any one of these people could turn down a ticket between now and May 1st. Like they are injured, something else comes up. That has to happen by May 1st. It could roll down again. This is why Abby Hall got in late last year, because MK Sullivan was pregnant. Kind of had to wait to make sure that she was, everything was good to go. And then when she withdrew, that ticket rolled to her. Well into the 2-week window, but ahead of May 1st. And then, so behind Molly, in fourth and fifth, we have Abby Hall and Shea Aquilano. Abby's already in Western States as the Western States champion from last year. She PRs by like 23 minutes or something and finishes fifth again. Like, holy cow, you guys are all so fit right now. Shea Aquilano finishes sixth for the third time. And she's 23, I want to say, 24 maybe. Like, she's young. It's her fifth or sixth time running Black Canyon, I'm pretty sure. And she's like steadily PR'd every year, effectively. Like I think the first time she ran Black Canyon, she ran like 12 something.
Mm-hmm.
Like 12:34, 12:40, something like that. And this year she runs
8:35 or something. Yeah.
yeah, something
Mm-hmm.
insanely fast. So she is not in Western states. Last year she got in via the
Mm-hmm.
lottery because despite the fact that she's like 22, 23 at that time, she has been putting in for the Western States lottery for years because she's been running ultras since she was in
Yeah.
college. And she gets in through the lottery. She runs a good Western States, but not a great Western States. And in the field now, as Keely is well aware, you have to run a great Western States.
Mm-hmm.
And she finishes outside the top 10. So Shay is looking to get back into Western States.
Mm-hmm.
She's sitting in a position right now where if Jen or Molly decided to turn down their ticket because it's not really, they decide it's not for them this year, which either one of them would be totally reasonable to want to get some more running under your belt. I think Jen particularly because she's been very
Mm-hmm.
calculated in how she moves up
Yeah.
in
Mm-hmm.
distance. That for her, I don't see Molly turning down the ticket at this
No.
point. Jen, I could see being on the bubble given that she's been very methodical to move up even to like the 80K to 100K
Mm-hmm.
distance. I don't know that she wants to completely jump to a 100
Right.
mile in June.
Yeah.
So we'll see what her
Yeah.
and her coaching team decide. I'm sure ACG really wants her to run
Right.
Western States,
Yeah. But like,
but it
yeah.
needs to be her decision. So Shay could be getting a
Yeah.
ticket from this race. I'm sure she's signed up for Canyon's 100K.
Oof. It's
Um,
gracious.
but
Yeah.
that would be where the spot rules too, would be to Shay and six. And because this is a super golden ticket race and there were 3 tickets in
It
each,
rolls.
they were actually going to let it roll down to
Oh, wow.
seventh for the first time ever.
Oh.
So it is the most competitive race on the circuit to get a golden
Mhm.
ticket, but there's also some wiggle room for
Mhm.
that ticket to roll a little bit further, which is nice because people are truly fighting tooth and nail for those
Yeah.
spots.
Yeah. I'm excited to see
Sweet.
who ends up towing the line in June.
It's gonna happen. I mean, I'm Team Keely Henninger all the way, but well, we'll see what happens for everyone else. I wanted to give a shout out because I'm just still fired up about it to the women who made up Team USA at the Olympics. The stats have been flying around, but effectively, I think for the 6th Olympics in a row, and that counts like summer, winter, summer, winter, summer, winter, the majority of Team USA's medals and gold medals have been won by women. So, women's sports, here we go. This time around, they won 67% of the gold medals and 61% of the total medals.
Nice.
And so I just wanted to quickly read off the women who won medals at the Olympics because it'll take me 2 minutes for Team USA because I'm a stan. Breezy Johnson wins gold in women's downhill. Michaela Schifrin wins gold in women's slalom. I don't need to say women because it turns out it's women's downhill and then it's downhill and then men's downhill maybe instead. So Michaela Schifrin wins gold in slalom. Paula Moltzan and Jacqueline Wiles win the bronze in team combined, which is like one does slalom, one does downhill. Alana Myers wins gold in monobob. Kaylee Humphreys wins bronze with teammate Jasmine Jones in two women bobsled. She also actually won bronze in monobob. She's also a mom, which is really freaking cool. Jessie Diggins, my typo says Diggin, which does track for Jessie, wins bronze in the 10K skate. Corey Feast wins silver in the mixed doubles curling team. That was where Corey was paired with Corey. They just happened to be best friends. Alyssa Liu wins single skating gold. Amber Glenn, Alyssa Liu, Madison Chalk, and Ellie Kam are part of Team USA's figure skating team gold. Madison Chalk with her teammate Evan Bates wins silver in ice dance. They were robbed. They should have won gold. Elizabeth Lemley wins gold in moguls. Callie Kuhn wins mixed team aerials gold. Jalen Koff wins silver moguls and silver dual moguls. Elizabeth Lemley wins bronze in dual moguls. Team USA women's ice hockey wins gold. Of course they did. Just want to say the Seattle Torrent had 4 women on the U.S. national team, including Captain Hillary Knight. We all stand for the Seattle Torrent and the U.S. women's gold hockey team. Ashley Forquison won bronze in singles luge. Corinne Stoddart won bronze in short track speed skating 1500 meter. Chloe Kim wins silver half pipe. Silver and half pipe for snowboard. Mia Mangiello wins bronze in speed skating mass start. Just over the moon. Over the moon. And a lot of this comes on the heels of Title IX passing in the 70s and women having years now of increasingly better support. Not excellent support, not the same support as their male counterparts, but increasingly good support, particularly with like the professionalization of sporting leagues like hockey, soccer, basketball, etc.,
Yeah.
which I just think is important.
I mean, I agree. It's super well said. And I think it's okay to highlight how far we've come and still like want more. We have so much further to go, but like we're at a cool spot.
Yeah, we're at a cool spot. Some moves that need to be made. Yeah. Oh, Cam Smith, Anna Gibson, fourth in Schemo mixed team relay. So they're knocking at the door. But another thing I wanted to highlight was that in this Olympics, the women across the board, sport to sport, I watched a lot of figure skating. I watched a lot of cross country skiing. I watched a lot of biathlon. In particular, those were kind of my big three that needed to happen on a regular basis. And the amount of joy that they shared with their teammates, with their competitors, with other people on the podium. Yes, there were moments of anguish or being upset or not hitting your mark, not doing what you wanted to accomplish out there. But for the most part, they also all credited their teams. Alana credited her nanny, who's actually a brakeman who didn't make the World Cup squad this year. And she was like, hey, do you want to come on tour as my nanny and like help? And hired her on for the year and immediately credited the childcare that she's received over the past year. Alyssa Liu looking to the Japanese skater who skated last in women's singles, and the Japanese skater couldn't figure out if she had finished third or fourth. And so she like signals to Alyssa being like asking like with her fingers like 4-3, and Alyssa is the one who confirms to the skater, you got the bronze medal. And like then they share this moment of like utter joy together. And to me, that was amazing. Michaela has a bad day in the team mixed event, and she's like, I'm just mostly bummed that I couldn't help Breezy win a second medal at the Olympics. They finished fourth, but they also were so proud of their teammates who finished with the bronze medal that day and credited their incredible teams behind them. And to me, that speaks just incredibly highly of women's sport, in which you don't all have to be friends, and you can all want to be the best, and you can champion one another along the way.
Yeah, I think we're finally to a point where most athletes, again, most, are accepting the fact that a rising tide can raise all ships. Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool. And I just wanted to say, like, lots of moms out there. I mentioned Kaylee and Alana, Italian woman who won a speed skating medal was a mom. There are a number of moms on the ice hockey team. I know there's a number of curling moms as well. There was and then a bunch of moms who just missed medals as well, including half pipe, skiing, biathlon, snowboard, cross. And it was really cool to see families out there all together, because I think that might be the biggest turn for like female athletes right now, is that we are seeing more women return to sport post starting families. And that is also very exciting.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I guess that means we're ready for meat and potatoes.
Yeah, we got a good one today.
We got a good one. We've been talking a lot about stress. And we both flagged a piece of research that came across our Instagram desks. And we said, hey, we should talk about this. And I was also thinking, because of our stress conversation, it's kind of this like chicken or the egg scenario, where it's like, did stress cause the injury? Is injury causing my stress? Like, what is happening here? And so as I think about it more, the research specifically, I think, at this point, was really trying to look at, are women more prone than men to getting injured? And I think that's kind of where we're going to start this conversation, but it's pertinent right now. We've got athletes that are injured or coming off of injury. People are trying to get ready for their summer races, and maybe things aren't lining up quite perfectly. So there's a lot going on, and I think it's a great time of year to dive into this.
Yeah, and for the context of this talk, like, we're going to reference women or female athletes, and in this context, this is going to refer to those people born with ovaries who went through puberty with estrogen. And so just for the context of this talk, that's where we're kind of leaning with the women or female athlete context, just because that's where the research has been. When the research expands, we would love to expand our discussion.
Yeah, but that, like, as we're going to talk about hormones a lot today, like that's where that reference is because there are female specific hormones that are at play or not at play. And that is what the research is trying to pick apart.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think like me and you both flagged a study that was kind of talking about the menstrual cycle and injury and all this stuff. And I think that's such a clickbaity topic right now. And I can't wait to dive into that. But I think taking a step back to your previous point is like, are women actually more injury prone than men, or is there no difference? I think we've all seen the studies that have shown that female athletes are more inclined to have ACL tears than men, especially in contact sport and fixed landing sports. So like gymnastics, soccer, basketball, etc. And they can even have up to like a 3 times risk in certain sports. And so I do think it is important to emphasize that. Some of the contributors to this could be potentially their hormone profile, which is different than men's. But specifically to women is the Q angle, which we've talked about on the show before. But for those of you who don't remember, it's basically due to the wider pelvis that women have to give birth. And so our like pelvis is created in a way so that we can have a baby go through our canal and come out the other side. And so when we do go through puberty, that widens. And sometimes that angle will strain different, biomechanical metrics that can lead to increased injuries. And so that is one thing.
And that angle is from the like looking at the hip to the knee, right? Yep. So it's like valgus versus varus.
Yeah. So if you can think of like a triangle, it's like the like when it's like you're looking at the bottom of a triangle. So think of a pyramid. It's like if you flip it, then that area is getting wider, like those 2 points, and like going down to like the knees. So it's like making the angle steeper.
Yeah, which can cause potentially like muscular imbalances, for example, or like we know from a gendered standpoint, it's like there are certain muscle groups that are generally more underdeveloped in women versus their male counterparts.
Exactly. And so there are some things that prove that there are reasons why female athletes might have more injuries than men or different injuries than men. But I think in general, and something that's kind of on brand with what we've been talking about lately, is that there's a lot of reasons that can cause injury that will impact both men and women, right? Or anybody.
Yeah.
And those things can be things like low energy availability, which is what we talked about last week, where, you might not be intaking enough calories to meet your energy demand. You might be experiencing symptoms of REDS, which might impair bone health and recovery and all of these things. You also might just have improper training, and that might be from like you not making sense of your training or getting distracted and accidentally doing too much right away. It could be from too little strength training, could be from some imbalances you have over the course of your career. There's a lot of reasons why we can get injured, and they're not always our fault, right? Like most of the time they aren't. And then other ones could just be acute injuries, right? Like maybe you're just doing something and you roll your ankle in the middle of Western states and you tear all your medial tendons. Like
you fall and your shoulder dislocates, like there are some things that are just outside your control, Keely.
There are definitely acute injuries as well. So I would say just like, there's a lot of reasons to get injured. I think as runners or athletes in general, when we do get plagued with an injury, we often like think that it's our fault. And so I'd say like, there might be things we can change about our training that led to the injury, but oftentimes it's not our fault. And so give yourself some grace if you are going through that and realize there's a lot of factors that can contribute.
Yeah, there are things that are outside of our control largely, which is very frustrating when you're type A and you want outcomes to be a certain way. And so because we want to set this up from like a gendered perspective a little bit. And that's, again, because we're pointing back to the science that is also pushing this narrative and wanting to like pick it apart a little bit and see, what could be applicable to athletes and what might not be as applicable to athletes or coaches. So from a gendered perspective, that makes me think hormones. So do hormones play a role when it comes to injury risk for an athlete?
Yeah. And I think like, when you look at hormones in general and you think about female athletes, they have 2 major, and I say major because they're by no means the only sex hormones regulating, but major sex hormones that could regulate injury risk. We have estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen does play a role in metabolism and skeletal muscle development. It's also hypothesized to play a role in anti-inflammatory regulation and repair, and a role in collagen synthesis. So in a nutshell, estrogen may impact, muscle dynamics. And then progesterone is kind of the other hormone that increases during the menstrual cycle for women. And this can increase things or influence things like thermoregulation, fluid balance, and perceived exertion. And so, again, can impact training, may impact things that could result in injury, but no definitive link.
Yeah, like I have a friend who like is like affirmed that she cannot run downhill during a certain phase of her cycle because mentally she's
Mhm.
like, I'm just not very clear. And so I just like fall a lot during
Yeah,
X phase of my menstrual cycle because I'm
that's so
fuzzy.
fair. Yeah. And so I think, knowing that estrogen, progesterone do have functions in the body that could potentially impact like performance, a lot of studies have sought to see if changes in the menstrual cycle impact things like injury risk. And so that was kind of the study we wanted to talk about today, because the most recent one that came out was a new study looking at injury duration and severity in a group of 33 footballers, where they tracked their menstrual cycles using the calendar method, and looked at things like injury duration, severity, injury type in relation to the phase of their menstrual cycle. So they broke the menstrual cycle up into the menstrual phase, the late follicular phase, ovulation, early luteal, and late luteal, I believe.
Okay.
And again, all based off calendar method. So I will say, like, that's a pretty big con just because we know
Yeah,
how,
like what are the weaknesses
yeah,
there?
like in general, another paper came out recently by Elliot, Kate, oh gosh,
Oh, I know who you're talking
Elliot,
about. What
Elliot
I don't
Hale,
know what are
um,
okay.
that said we need to stop using the calendar method to track menstruation. I couldn't agree more. As someone who studied it before at Nike, when you look at a cycle, even across the same person, the amount of variability in hormone levels in relation to the phase of the cycle are extremely different across the cycles. And so I think just saying, this person's in this phase based off the calendar method because they bled on this day is pretty bad. And it's a bad way to conduct a study. But again, it's what we're at right now. Getting daily or every other day hormones on athletes is extremely expensive, and we don't have that kind of money right now going into female athlete research around menstruation. And so that is probably like the biggest con of the study, is that they did use the calendar method. And so take it as a grain of salt, because I do think that hormones can vary outside of the menstrual cycle. So
They need to contract with like these like fertility companies that are like,
yeah,
you can pee on a stick and we can tell you your exact
yep,
progesterone, estrogen,
yep.
and LH. Like
That's what we did.
there
Mhm.
this can
Yeah.
happen. There is a
There,
good
there are
overlap
groups
here.
that do 30-day to 35-day or up to 35-day tracking every other day, pee on a stick. It will tell you estrogen, progesterone, LH, FSH. They are
Yeah.
expensive kits. They are expensive to get read by that same company, but it is out there and it is really cool. And so I think as the technology continues to build, right, like anything, it will become cheaper, easier to use for these studies. Hopefully, we can get studies where we actually can see the hormone changes. But in the meantime, I think using something like a surrogate for bleed time, or just the calendar-based method, like temperature, could just be something.
We go a long way.
Temperature,
Yeah.
ovulation kit, those are really cheap things you could add on. Anyways, that's kind of outside of the realm of the rest of this talk. But um,
It's mostly just our soapbox of like how this research could be way better and like more sound with less
yeah,
limitations.
but okay. So, in case you guys are now waiting with bated breath to understand what the study actually said, they found that there was increased injury duration and increased severity if the injury occurred during the menstruation phase. So, again, menstruation phase means the bleeding phase. Um,
Interesting.
and so that would mean, like, if you got injured tomorrow, Corinne, and you were during your bleeding phase, that potentially that injury duration compared to if you got injured when you were ovulating would be longer or more severe. So take longer to recover, require more intervention, those kind of things. Um, yeah. So this all kind of tracks because at that time, a lot of the hormones drop. And so again, if you're thinking at like how estrogen worked in the body, like we were talking about before, where it plays a lot of roles in metabolism, skeletal muscle development, it could make sense that it has a role in injury. Now, does that mean that this study is the gold standard now to know that it happens during menstruation? Absolutely not. It just more, I think, emphasizes that this is something we need to keep studying, and that estrogen could play a role in injury development and potentially injury severity in the long run. But again, I think we need more studies in this, but really cool study to come out, and a really good one to like take as a initial study to fuel future studies in this space.
Yeah, it reminds me of so much of the research in and around the menstrual cycle and athletic performance, in which it's like some study based if we took all these studies, basically women can perform on any day of their cycle and also feel bad on any day
Yeah.
of their cycle. And it's kind of like there's other research out there that suggests that like ACL tear risk is actually way higher around ovulation, which is like nowhere really
Mhm.
near like your bleed phase versus there being no correlation to any specific phase of it. So it's just, again, very interesting. We need like, and I feel like there are a number of researchers, prominent researchers, who have also put time into this, in which they've also suggested the biggest thing that we could be doing for women's sports research is like standardizing the protocols in which we
Mhm.
use in order to ask and answer
Mhm.
questions.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. Like standardizing the protocol to ask and answer questions, and then standardizing like the training load metrics, what you gather as a coach, right? Because how else
Yeah.
are we supposed to quantify these things and compare them as a in a big way?
A lot of wearables. We just need people to be wearing a lot of wearables for us. And then, so yeah, you're going to pee on things that are expensive, but we can get that covered. We're going to use an Aura ring to back that up. It's like we can just combine it all to one giant wearable study where there'll be too many metrics. But I do wonder if we will get some of that. Interestingly, totally tangent in a way, because of like the fertility journey we've been on. I have all this data with like my heart rate variability, my resting heart rate, and my body temp from being on Mirena,
Mhm.
for being off of any birth
Mhm.
control, and from being on oral birth control in order to prep for IVF.
Oh yeah,
And so it's super
that's
interesting actually to
fascinating.
see like the difference between me being on Mirena and not being on anything is actually like way closer together
Mhm.
than me being on like oral birth control. And I was like, oh yeah, like temperature wise, heart rate variability wise, it's like this is this like daily cycle of like kind of pushing you late luteal with like an influx of hormones.
Mhm.
Um, so it is a very interesting like personal data journey.
Yeah.
But again, there is technology available, and I think that researchers, when you got to figure out a way to bring it all together.
I agree. Yeah. You're speaking my language. We can get one of these big studies off the ground one day. That'd be my dream.
Keely's like, and this is how I have an MD, PhD,
Oh man.
how you never graduate from medical school. Is there anything else from the study that we should address from a hormone perspective, or do we want to move kind of forward into
Mm. You know, I think the only
like
other
bigger
thing that I
times?
want to touch on, and it's maybe because I think some people have heard of this word, and in case you did, I just want to clarify it. There is this hormone called relaxin, and this is a little bit outside of the study we just referenced, but in relation to your menstrual cycle, I think it is important in relation to injury. So, relaxin is a thing that's released to increase the ligamental laxity in your body because it's like getting ready to maybe have a baby. And so, like, when you're pregnant and you need to have like more laxity, right, to be able to like grow and expand and like make your pelvis wider to be able to accommodate all these things, like relaxin is high because you need to be able to have all this extra laxity in your body, for lack of a better word. This also changes during the menstrual cycle. So it peaks during the luteal phase and it has like a slight bump during the ovulatory phase. And so, again, some of the hypotheses out there around injury do kind of cite relaxin as one of the things that could cause, the increases in ACL tears or something like that during ovulation, because it does elevate beyond what it was before. And so, again, just something to almost like baseline you of like what even relaxin is. You might have heard it before, and that it does play a role kind of in these dynamics. But again, we don't have any like definitive answer to if it's the exact reason, because there's many studies that show like the elevation of it alone are not the things that cause these injuries. It's more like an interplay of like increased estrogen, increased relaxin that might impact these things.
Yeah, it's like it's one of many variables that all might have a percentage impact on an increased risk
Mhm.
of a, I guess, like a tendon or ligament related
Mhm.
injury specifically.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. If I've learned anything, it's just like, girls, you want your ACLs intact? Got to have big, strong
Yeah.
hamstrings.
Totally. Totally.
Independent of menstrual
Wow.
cycle, just got to have
Yeah,
big,
and
strong
that is what they're
hamstrings.
showing in the research now, right? That like when they do properly train, strength train, and PT train, a lot of athletes, they are able to reduce the ACL tear rate. They aren't able to get rid of it, but they are able to reduce it.
Yeah, and also Nike was like, oh, maybe we should. I think it was Nike. It could have been Adidas. I don't know. It was a big company who was like, oh, what if we designed women's soccer cleats for
So that
women?
was Nike, yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like, again, it's like there are multiple things at play where it's like, I don't know, women figure it out. But one of my mentors in my undergrad worked with the U.S. ski team, and he did a lot of joint health research, and did a lot of quad hamstring testing and strength protocols with the U.S. ski team in order to try to reduce the risk of ACL tears. So super interesting. Anything else that we should know about estrogen or progesterone in the context of injury?
I think,
Or are there no real trackings there?
yeah, no, I think again, it's all speculative right now. I do think that the one thing that comes to mind is like absence of estrogen and progesterone, which would be more associated with something like menopause, where, you are in a space in your life where the estrogen and progesterone are extremely low. And this has been shown in some masters athletes populations to impair muscle protein synthesis. And so and collagen synthesis. So this could, in theory, impact recovery, obviously. And then also with that time, the bone density changes that happen with decreased estrogen could result in more bone injuries too. So I think it's just like a good reminder that these big changes in estrogen progesterone may result in like greater injury risk, longer recovery timelines. And so I think these are like the populations we should try to study because they're the ones at the extremes. Whereas like the menstrual cycle is not quite as an extreme as someone who's in menopause, So I think we could glean a lot of insights by studying the menopausal population, which is even less studied than the regular female athlete population. But that could be really cool. And I think it just emphasizes that hormone fluctuations can just impact muscle and tendon metabolism and repair, and they also might impact relaxin levels. And so all of these things combined could just impact your injury risk, your recovery and strength. And this is why things like amenorrhea, low energy availability, previous history of disordered eating are things that we are concerned about as a coach, because they could just impact your ability to recover from an injury and also might increase your chance of an injury because of all of the hormonal changes that have all of these downstream effects.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, too, it's like it's harder to maintain lean muscle mass in menopause. And we know that if we just mentioned that maybe one of the biggest indicators of gendered indicators of injury in women is things like Q angle and, quad dominance instead of hamstring dominance, like that becomes only probably heightened in a master's athlete who's having a harder time maintaining lean muscle mass.
Yeah.
The chicken or the egg, you know? I guess kind of moving beyond injury, more to recovery in general. Like, are there other factors for like the normal menstruating population when it comes to our ability to recover during different phases of our menstrual cycle? Not necessarily, maybe not even from an injury standpoint, but just from like a general, I'm training really hard standpoint as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where we see like the luteal phase, late luteal phase come into play, where you're extremely high progesterone level, which is increasing your body temperature and changing your fluid dynamic, and has been shown to like really show increased perceived exertion by athletes, comes into play, because I do think a lot of athletes quote that time as like a time they feel the worst during their training. But I think, again, a lot of the physiology points to this, but a lot of the studies have shown that you can perform really well at any phase of your cycle. So again, it's hard to say chicken or the egg. And then I think another thing that is important is that estrogen has been proven to play a role in anti-inflammatory. So your body's ability to, decrease inflammation and decrease swelling. And so, yeah, if you think about that, then times when estrogen is low or high could have play big roles on your inflammatory response. And so again, I think all of these things packed together could just impact your ability to change or to recover from injuries.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, while these things are happening in the background, and I think as athletes, we're probably even more attuned to that than the average population. When I'm like, something's a little bit off, it's like, yeah, my iron is, it's like the smallest ferritin change type of thing. But at the end of the day, those things probably matter less than just like adequate sleep, adequate nutrition, managing psychological stress, etc.
Totally. Yeah. It's like nail the basics and then start to get really nuanced, don't sacrifice sleep to really finesse your hormones or something like that. But if they're all intertwined because you're not sleeping, because your hormones are all wacky and you're not eating enough, well then, yeah, let's fix the nutrition. That might fix the sleep, might fix the hormones. But yeah, those things are definitely more important.
Yeah. And then maybe the biggest indicator of how a menstrual cycle, or maybe a lack of menstrual cycle, would impact injury is that you have a heightened. We know that you have a heightened risk for injury if you're amenorrheic, or if you have some sort of big that is not explained by PCOS or endometriosis or some other condition that is unexplained by a medical or clinical cause, i.e., it is probably due to being underfueled, under recovered. That might be the biggest, like, let's make a tie between menstrual cycle and injury. It's like, well, if you're amenorrheic, if you do not have a menstrual cycle due to low energy availability, that is probably maybe the greatest tie
Yeah.
when we talk about cycle and hormones, because we know that there's a cascading effect, impairing bone density, inhibiting your ability to recover, et cetera, et cetera, et
Totally.
cetera.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you could start to study that population compared to a population that are receiving estrogen or something where their estrogen is high, or, compare premenopausal to postmenopausal women and like really start to try to understand like why are those that have no estrogen or very low estrogen way more energy or injury prone than those are not? Is it just the bone density thing? But it probably not, because I have a lot of athletes who maybe have low energy availability, disordered eating, where their recovery takes a really long time. So it's like, let's look at that interplay and like test the extremes.
Yeah. We also see that with athletes that are older too, right? Like, I'm sure you've had an athlete say, hey, I actually need an extra recovery
Totally.
day
I need
a
one.
week, or I need an extra day between my hard efforts, between my workout day and my long run day, because I just don't recover as fast. And that day is coming for all of
Totally.
us. But that is one of the biggest tweaks I have to make with my older athletes, is just that recovery time is just longer. And I have to imagine part of that, it's not because they're less fit.
Yeah.
It's because they do have this big change in baseline
Totally.
hormones. And friends that are on HRT, because they're perimenopausal or menopausal, have noticed a huge improvement in their brain fog, their ability to recover, their ability to sleep, their ability to thermoregulate once they have adequate hormones as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a really interesting point you made, because it's like you're anecdotally seeing this in a lot of your athletes. I've also seen some of this with my menopausal athletes. Have you had discussions with your athletes around their menstrual cycle and performance or injury changes? I know you said in the beginning you have a friend who says they can't run downhill during a certain phase. Like, totally get that. But have you seen any from like a coaching performance lens?
Oftentimes I'll get like a really vague comment in Training Peaks that's like, I just felt blah today. And I'll be like, where are you in your cycle? Like, are we tracking that? Like, do we know, like, do I have a note in Training Peaks about this? Or do you know? And they'll be like, oh yeah, I'm going to start my period in 48 hours. And I was like, like, I know personally, if I'm going to feel lackluster, it is usually 24 to 72 hours before my period. And it's like, it doesn't mean that I can't perform. But and again, I call it pizza legs, which has nothing to do with pizza. It's just like this like empty sensation, because I had this sensation once after eating pizza. I've also been on the podium at European Championships after eating an entire pizza, so it has nothing to do with pizza. But I call it pizza legs, and it's like the shorthand for Steven and I, where it's just like, I got nothing. And that is that, like, and I've had to tell my coach, like, that doesn't mean that I don't want you to prescribe a workout or prescribe a long run. I might make a modification if I decide I'm not feeling it. But it's one of those things where it's like, I just give myself a little bit more grace when I recognize it's coming. And so for athletes, it's oftentimes like trying to have that conversation. Yeah, do they menstruate regularly? And if they don't, do we know why? And what does that look like? Do they have a healthcare team in place? Are they working with a dietitian? Are they working with I've had to have athletes have endocrinologists and, a full gamut of providers in order to regain their menstrual cycle and regain their bone density. Athletes who have been in that low of low, where they needed to be on an estrogen patch, they needed to be doing really specific strength training, they needed to gain weight, and they needed to have someone help them do all those things. And I am not the person that can do all of that. I am the person that can make sure that we're not doing anything dumb running. And then we lean into those other providers, their therapist, their medical team, their dietitian, and bring it all together to ideally get them back to a place of homeostasis, which will allow them to eventually run to the best of their ability. But the medium term is just getting them back to being a healthy human.
Yeah, totally. No, it's so true. And I think to your point about keeping the workouts on, I like that, because I do think it's still good mental training to try the workout or even do it at the effort that feels hard that day, regardless of the pace, because that's still a hard effort. It's still mentally hard. It's still physiologically hard. Even if the pace is slow on your watch, you're working, even if it feels like slower than normal. So I think, yeah, trying to keep them on there, and then, yeah, encouraging modification instead of just saying like, okay, let's do nothing. It's like, let's start and try. And then if you feel like garbage, modify. That is totally fine. But I think like trying and just giving yourself grace is really cool there.
How do you deal with training during a period of injury, just broadly, like i.e., maybe they have a bone stress injury
Mm-hmm.
as an example, and they've had a period of time where maybe they're not allowed to do anything. Like
Yeah.
I actually had a guy with an acute femoral injury, like so not a typical bone stress injury, and building back from that has been really interesting because it wasn't like we did anything wrong. It was this acute
Mm-hmm.
injury, but keeping him from going from zero to hero has been really hard. And I'm wondering how you deal with that in an athlete
Yeah.
who maybe they have the green light to cross train. What does that
Yeah.
mean? And then how do you get back, like the back to running phase
Yeah.
is really hard.
That's a great question. And I think that the first thing I do is try to understand the injury. Was it a stress fracture? Was it a big bone or a little bone? Do we have other variables in your life that have me concerned for something like REDS? Because if that's the case, I'm going to not only like decrease the cross training, I'm going to be way more cautious with your return to run, right? Because we know that the recovery could take longer. You're already in this energy deficit going in. Your bones might not have as much bone density as they need. We have a lot more digging to do to figure out like, where are you in this REDS journey and how can we build you back really carefully? And when it's something like that, where the athlete maybe's had multiple stress fractures or had, a couple big bone stress fractures, and they're in, a couple weeks into their recovery where maybe they've done nothing for 2 weeks and they want to start cross training, I'll say, okay, like this is what I'm thinking for cross training. I'm going to build them back really slowly, cap their long rides on the bike maybe at an hour. And I'll try to phrase this to them as a collaboration. I'll say, hey, I really want you to get back to running. That is both of our goals. I don't want anything more than that. I think that in order to get there, we need to be able to balance where your energy goes. And when we cross train a lot, that pulls a lot of the energy from your body where that energy could be going to heal your bones. And so I try to make it this like give or take. It's like, yeah, we could do more cross training. I'm never going to force you to do anything. I can't force you. We can't force people as their coaches, but we can negotiate with them and we can coach them and we can try to work with them to have them understand that there's going to be a give and take. And if you choose to cross train more because maybe, exercise your outlet, maybe you have a little bit of exercise dependence, a lot of things going on, and you're choosing to exercise more. I want you to know that the consequence could be that you don't get to run when you want to because we're not ready yet. And most of the time when you have that frank conversation, most people will meet you where you are and they're like, you're right. My goal is to be back running. My goal is not to be sweating on this trainer for 2 months. My goal is to be running. And so they'll normally listen to more your guidance and not do these crazy long trainer rides and burn all of the energy they have and be in more of an energy deficit than before they started.
Yeah, I kind of always feel like bad cop when I'm like, no, 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 like we can't do this. We need to do this. And sometimes it's like, okay, like we're not talking about building fitness. We're talking about maintaining, or we're not talking about maintaining fitness. We're talking about doing a healthy amount of exercise for your
Mhm.
well-being because you need to sweat, you need to decompress, it can be a mental health thing because we do know the psychological side effects of injury are
Yep.
profound as well. It's not just the physical side effects of being removed from your sport. There are psychological side effects to that are very, very real. And so that might be a great time if a therapist is not part of your team
Yep.
to have a therapist on board because if it's your first injury, if you have not gone through this before, you might not have coping
Mhm.
skills for this. And it can be really, really challenging if running, for example, is your life coping
Mhm.
skill. And so being really mindful of that as well is really hard. But I like that team element of like, hey, we're working on this together. And our goal is to get you back running. Our goal is to get you out of this gym, off this Alter G, off this elliptical because of this athlete. And I think he'd be fine with me sharing this. I think he actually listens to the podcast. So we're talking about you. But again, acute injury, we had to get really creative. Like we had clearance to do a certain amount of training, but he also was non-weight bearing. So we were doing workouts on a ski erg. We were swimming in the pool with a buoy between his legs. We were rowing with his injured leg on a skateboard. Like we were finding ways to allow him to work out. But like if we were going hour to hour, right? Like he was definitely training less during this time of intense cross training in a lot of ways than he would have if he had just been running. And in part because it's like, one, well, we can't go crazy. And two, it's like my goal is to give you an outlet and to build strength and to work on our weaknesses and to create a routine during this period of injury that sets us up for our return to run, but doesn't take away or delay our timeline.
Yep.
Because the worst thing that can happen is, yeah, you start running too soon and we're back to square one again. And I see that a lot in like Achilles injuries, for example, where it's like we jump right back up to something. And it's like, well, you went from not running at all for 3 weeks to trying to run your full volume.
Yeah.
And your body needs to take time to work on that load. Your musculoskeletal system needs time to adjust to that load. It is a great way to come back from a tendon injury only to get a bone stress injury if you go from 0 to hero. And so it's not fun and it's not exciting, but it is like a really, even I wasn't allowed to run for 2 weeks. I'm returning to run, but like this week will be pretty low volume and I'll actually probably cross train every other day because I risk injuring myself by jumping right back into my normal run volume.
Yeah.
And so like this week will be a little bit of a medium week because it's like I'd be risking not being able to run 2 or 3 weeks from now. Like I want to run Chuckanut. Here's a great example. I want to run Chuckanut. I really wanted to race Chuckanut, and really I'm telling myself I'm running Chuckanut, not racing Chuckanut, because I've had this time of taking a little bit of a forced break. I could be really stressed about that and want to run 80 miles this week. The likelihood of me getting hurt doing that and then spending the next 3 weeks to race day not running very much at all is not effective. And so, yeah, I'm having to temper my energy this week and listen to my coach and work together on things so that, yeah, hopefully I can continue to build for my goals that come in May and July and September and that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's spot on. And I think with bones, it's easier to articulate that to athletes because bone is pretty straightforward. You're like, okay, it needs 4 to 8 weeks, pending fracture to heal, given proper energy intake and all these things. But typically bone is pretty straightforward. Tendons are hard, right? Because tendons like load, but they don't like too much load. So it's like, you got to find the sweet spot with them. And yeah, you can't overload them right away because the load is typically a cumulative number. And so if you've just sat around for 3 weeks, even though it doesn't feel that long, your body can't just jump right back to pre-3 week load because that rolling average of your load over those 4 weeks is extremely low. And so you can't just be like, I'm back up there without most likely some consequences.
Yeah. So again, it's not very sexy, but it is important. And again, part of that is balancing that stress on the rebound as well. And that is balancing the life stress factors, I've got a lot of athletes with busy work schedules right now. We're through the new year, tax season is upon us. I've got athletes where quarterly they've got some stressors in their life, and that's also important. And like, it's unfortunate that it's also combined with a period of injury because there are multiple factors, again, ramping. But I think it's just a great reminder of like, okay, how are we managing our energy? How are we managing what kind of injury are we working from? How are we managing your sanity? And then recognizing that, yeah, you don't need to be doing 30 hours a week on a bike.
Yeah. Not productive. Unless you want to like just become a biker and not heal your injury,
Yeah. Which we've seen happen.
But
we've seen happen.
Most people
but
do
no.
that.
Yeah. So again, I think it's like working with a team is maybe really important in this as well. Like working with your coach in collaboration, leaning into your medical providers. Like working again on this acute femoral injury with this athlete, we had a PT that we didn't like. And it wasn't that they were a bad PT. They just like weren't really as familiar with runners as we wanted. And so we found we asked for a second opinion and we got a second opinion. And maybe it's like, oh, this one aligns with our biases, so we're going to go with that. But it's also about your sanity and your clarity and like working with a team that you trust. And so we transferred PT care. And that PT came back with a plan that was still not maybe aggressive enough for this athlete initially, but one that we all agreed upon. And that was so beneficial for me as the coach, for the athlete, and for us to all be working together on this project in a way that makes them feel like, yes, I'm not doing too much, I'm not doing too little. Like I am, hitting my benchmarks week over week. And again, it was like going from zero to hero, where it was like, no, like having to be like, yep, we're going to be on the alter G, and this is what we're going to do on the alter G, and this is how we're going to transition off the alter G to ground. And what does that look like? But I can't do that on my own. And so having a PT in your corner, working with that athlete or a sports ortho or whatever it is
Yeah.
cannot recommend enough.
100%. Yeah. I think all return to run programs should be vetted by a PT or an orthopedic doctor, like sports doctor or something. Like, as coaches, especially given like very unique injuries, it'd be best to try to get them looked at by somebody like that.
Yeah. Well, it's like I think IDing the injury, IDing like any other possible outcomes, making sure that they're doing appropriate PT exercises, that we're not doing an activity that's continuing to trigger the injury, et cetera. Like having someone that is like the biggest, and not that I could even do that in person because I'm not a PT, right? I'm staying in my lane of coaching. But having someone have hands on the athlete
is really good.
I think is so important. And my athletes are probably sick of me being like, so have we talked to the PT yet? But it's important. It's important to have people, a team in your corner, even when it feels frivolous.
Yeah. And I think one thing that I kind of want to just add before we move on to Society Slam is that a lot of my athletes typically withdraw from their community when they're injured because it's so like depressing. They feel isolated. And a lot of them who decide to go back into the community while they're still injured feel really excited and feel a lot more motivation to try to get uninjured. And so I know I do this. When you're injured, it's easy to withdraw. So it's just like, lean on your community. Everyone wants to help you. You know, if that you were in their shoes, you would jump at helping a friend.
Yeah. And I think there's like different phases of that too. It's like I had so many people offer to go on coffee walks with me during this time period. And I think that's like important. It's like, oh, I'm not ready for a workout, but I can go do the warm up with people and then like add on easy by myself. Or it's like, yeah, having those little touch points. Volunteer for your local race. Like there will be people that are walking at 95% of run clubs out there. Maybe you're not cleared to run yet, but you're cleared to walk. And so it's like, go walk at Run Club. Like there is someone that is willing to walk. And so I think that that's also because we're going there for the social impact, you know? So it's like, there's ways for you to continue to stay engaged in that community. And that's really, I think, important to make it through the injury smoothly.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think that was depressing. I think that was pretty well thought through as far as like injuries are rough. But, and I guess maybe this is a great call out. If you are dealing with an injury or you have found and are struggling, slide into our DMs. Would love to have that conversation with you, see what we can do to help. Or also if you have found specific things that were really helpful for you in periods of injury, reminders, something that you heard from someone, coaching advice that you received that was really impactful during that injury cycle, slide into our DMs. I think that'd be really helpful, and we can share that in a future Society Slam with other people who might be struggling with a current injury. Sweet. I can take the first Society Slam.
Slam it.
Yay. Okay. So we got one that said, hi, I'm watching the 50K Classic cross-country race at the Olympics, and I noticed that the coverage barely shows the women eating or drinking anything. I'm curious if they actually consume more, but it's not shown, or if they really aren't fueling much during the race. I think it'd be interesting to have a conversation around this since they are working really hard for 2 hours, and I wonder if someone could have a better race if they fueled more. Anyway, it's interesting based on what's happening in the high-carb fueling and ultras these days and the improvements that have come with that. And the 2 hour, it's like just over 2 hours. I think the winning women's time was 2 hours and 16 minutes this year. Time doesn't mean a whole lot in Nordic skiing because conditions and course layout change it so dramatically. But I was like, interesting. I was like, I can't remember how many feed zones they had in this. And so I tried to figure it out. And my understanding is that they had 2 feed zones every lap. They showed one pretty regularly. So at minimum, they had one. And the lap was 7 kilometers long. And so like they're getting fed fairly regularly.
Every 18 minutes or something.
Yeah. And so it's like they're getting fed pretty regularly and they're consuming a high carb drink. Sometimes they're consuming flat Coke or something. It's pretty old school in skiing, but it definitely still happens. They might be getting some caffeine along the way. In skate races, they're more likely to take gels because you can open skate, so not use your poles for a second and still move pretty rapidly. It's a lot harder to do that effectively classic skiing because you're in tracks. And so classic skiing without using your arms is really, really challenging. It's a guaranteed face plant at times. And so I think for the 50K Classic, they were relying much more heavily on drink mixes for that reason, because the feed zone that they showed regularly on camera was a small dip and then a little bit of a flat. And so they could basically just like, we call it sitting up, even though they're not on a bike, they sit up and they like were taking the like a drink mix and then tossing the little bottle. So it's honestly like probably as good as it gets, and is probably very comparable to like marathon feed zones, like thinking of like high end, like elite marathons, like that timing is like getting something at least every 7K, but they're probably, my guess is they're getting it twice a lap and we just weren't seeing one of those two locations.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So
I'm like, they're working so hard. They're definitely fueling.
Yeah, they have to. But they didn't used to fuel in like 10Ks, for example. We wouldn't get any fuel in a 10K. I definitely wouldn't get any fuel in a 5K. And I saw at this Olympic Games during both the 20K skiathlon and the 10K individual start skate race, they had a fuel zone on the 10K loop. So I think they could get fuel basically like at 3K and at 6K, more or less. So, which they wouldn't have historically done for a 10K, which they ski this year was like 30 something minutes, low 30s. So
cool.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. We have one more. This one's also about the Olympics. And this person said the Olympics were super inspirational. If you haven't watched yet, I would highly recommend watching the new Jessie Diggins documentary that was released on Peacock yesterday, February 23rd, called Threshold. Jessie does such a good job of letting us into her battle with disordered eating, what Olympic cycles mean, and trying to achieve something special at the highest level of sport, with an inside look at the 2023 to 2024 season. This film was funded by Patrick Dempsey. Yes, you heard that right. That is McDreamy of Grey's Anatomy, Derek Shepherd, and directed and produced by the Brinkema brothers, Torsten and Lars. And they grew up in Minnesota. Shout out Minnesota.
Yeah. I was texting with a friend about this. I know. I'm like, I'm going to cue that up when I make dinner tonight. I was talking to friends about it, and one of my friends said it was really amazing, like just like recognizing like how hard some of the past seasons have been, and gave a really interesting inside look to that. And then the other friend was like, I skied in college with Torsten. And so apparently it's beautiful. Apparently they did an amazing job. And I just also got the biggest kick out of like, you've made it when Patrick Dempsey is a super fan of yours.
Totally. Life goals.
Life goals for sure. Anything that you want to add before we sign off?
No, that's everything. You should be eating if you haven't already.
Yeah, please eat a snack. We went long today. And I guess the other thing I have to say is you should get ready to watch the Paralympics if you are sad that the Olympics are over. There's more amazing sports action right around the corner. And I think the episode coming out after this is going to be with a Paralympian Danny Arovich. So stay tuned for that one. And until next time, we'll catch you out on the trails.